If you clicked on this video, I'm sure you most likely enjoy Sonic music, because as much as it may sound weird, and people look at me strangely when I say some of my favorite songs are from Sonic games, Sonic music is really good, and today I'm going to prove it again. And yes, I mean again, because I've already made a video on this. But today is different, because I will be covering more songs, more OSTs, and more genres to represent the glory that is Sonic music, and with some special guests too. Before we get into the video, please like and make sure to watch at the end for a special announcement. Trust me, you're going to want to stay to the end. Anyway, get comfy, grab a snack, and put on some nice headphones and crank that volume, because your ears are about to be blessed by the pure bliss that is the Sonic the Hedgehog OSTs. Alrighty, so in my original video, I kind of glossed over the original classic games, so I'll go into them all individually since people were mad about that, but I wanted to give a new perspective to the whole Sonic OST thing. So let's present a new face, and several new faces actually, to all the OSTs coming forward. But anyway, we're starting things off with a fellow Sonic content creator of mine, Val, onto this video. So let's get this show on the road with, you guessed it, Sonic CD. Val, take it away.
Sonic CD is a game that's pretty tonally different than the other Genesis games, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't derive its themes from other titles. To really understand what makes up CD's themes and visuals, we need to take a step back and see where it started. Sonic 1 was a colorful fantasy world with a lot of elements of surrealism, like jumping into a giant ring at the end of a stage and being transported to some kind of pocket dimension with some kind of surreal visual, such as birds or fish in the background accompanied with clouds or water. The colorful squares, bumpers, and what I can only describe as mints work together to create an experience that really isn't rooted in reality. There is one more thing that wraps up these special stages in a neat bow, and that is the music. It's light, pleasant to listen to, and captures a strange feeling that can't really be described in words. It's neither uplifting nor disturbing, but strikes that middle ground in surrealism. I say all of this because Sonic CD derives a lot of its themes from Sonic 1, including the surrealism. And of course, this applies to the soundtrack as well. Of course, with these wild geometric level visuals and colors that are bordering on overwhelming, the music is here to make the themes pop just a bit more. The level opens with a colorful background full of palm trees and geometric terrain as the soundtrack starts building up to the cheers of children. It really makes a surreal and immersive experience for the player right out of the gate. But it's when the player finds one of these time-traveling signposts that things get interesting, because they send the player to the past or future version of the current stage they're in. This changes the whole visual style of the level and gives you a new objective rather than just reach the goalpost at the end of the act, where now you instead search for generators to destroy. This ultimately determines whether or not you end up in the good or bad future in the last act of the zone, which again immerses the player in that surrealism aspect. The music accompanying it also matches the tone of either the past, future, or whichever one of the two futures you end up in, which makes the player feel like they're part of the experience and not just an outsider looking in. Up to this point, I've discussed the Japanese version of this OST, but I do want to address at least one track from the US soundtrack, and that is the boss theme, aka the spawn of Satan himself, because dear lord, this is a scary sounding track. When I played this game for the first time back when I was a 4-year-old, I'll admit, I was too scared to even attempt this boss because of the creepiness it radiated, which is why I now have PTSD for Sonic CD. But you know what, it's a pretty good soundtrack, so I give Sonic CD's OST a rating of 8 out of 10. Now, if we move to the next subsequent title in the mainline series, Sonic 2, we start to see the game's tone shift further from the surrealism aspect. The environments and themes are still wacky and colorful for sure, but it's never something that feels surreal or foreign to the player. The soundtrack now accompanies these new level themes with songs that tonally fit them very well. One such stage I think exemplifies this statement well is Aquatic Ruin. The stage has you running around these aquatic ruins, great stage name I know, and the song accompanying it feels right at home. With its minor key and tasteful shifts in tone throughout the song, this feels much more in line with Sonic 1's OST than CD's. And of course, this soundtrack gave us probably one of the best themes for Eggman, so I'll give it credit there too. Overall, a really good soundtrack that I really couldn't find any duds in. I ended up enjoying pretty much every song on the list. Sonic 2 gets a 9 out of 10. After Sonic 2 comes the famous Sonic 3 and Knuckles, which once again shifts away from that surrealism aspect and really just feels like a grounded action adventure with creative but believable level themes. However, one thing that hasn't changed is how the OST matches the zone themes, which of course means that it's also grounded in reality. One of my favorites out of this bunch has to be Flying Battery. With its melody that never leaves your mind and the high note hook at the beginning, it's always such a bop to listen to while playing. Another one of my favorites on the opposite side of the thematic spectrum would have to be Ice Cap. It's much more mellow compared to the plethora of high-energy songs Sonic was known for at the time, with soft-sounding instruments and fade-ins and outs that make me feel a sense of comfort. I can't help but feel like everything's gonna be alright whenever I hear this song. And then the song ends and then, well, we're back on schedule. This, once again, is another great OST, and I don't think I had any songs that I disliked here. I know this might be an unpopular opinion, but I personally think it's on the same level as Sonic 2. So Sonic 3 and Knuckles gets a 9 out of 10. Now, moving forward, if we're talking about Sonic Superstars, well, it's kind of unfair to compare them now, isn't it? While I like Superstars, and for no other reason than the fact that it's entirely original with its level themes and music, I can't help but judge it as its own oddity that doesn't feel like it's connected to any other game in the series. Unfortunately, like all other Sonic games though, this also applies to the soundtrack. The tracks in Superstars aren't bad, but they're a far cry from the Genesis games, and if I'm being honest, I really can't remember a single track off the top of my head. The songs fit the level themes well enough, but they just didn't feel unique enough to create their own identity. So while I applaud the team for trying, I'd unfortunately have to say that it's the weakest game I've covered today. Again, it's not a bad soundtrack, just not memorable. Sonic Superstars gets a 5 out of 10. Let's shift back to some classic bangers though, cause the next title is none other than Sonic R. And with that, I'll now hand it over to NeedleMouse.
How's it going, everyone? NeedleMouse here. Sonic R is a video game that most certainly exists. The gameplay has to be some of the most slippery in the franchise, but one thing that this game absolutely nails is the OST. Damn, it is such a jam. Made by Richard Jacques and sung by TJ Davis, all of these songs are just amazing. Unlike most Sonic soundtracks where they focus a lot on rock, this feels like more of a funk or jazz, and each and every song fits their respective environment like a glove. Having only one music director really helps because the game's OST is no longer all over the place and is very focused. Sonic R has its own style and has yet to be replicated ever again in the franchise. You of course have the absolute masterpiece Can You Feel the Sunshine, a song that is not only extremely iconic, but is also just a great listen when you're feeling down. Which is half the time of my life, but that doesn't matter. Living in the City is another absolutely amazing piece that fits Radical City very well. I should actually point out here that all of the lyrics in all of the songs are so joyful and heartwarming, to say the absolute least. Whenever you're down, I 100% recommend to listen to these because they are bangers, to say the least. And Living in the City perfectly embodies that. Back in Time is an underrated song. The opening to the song makes me feel like I can do anything the world can throw at me. Work It Out is another very positive piece that makes me want to get up and do something, fix the world. Diamond in the Sky is just amazing. The lyrics and the music itself is just some of the best in the game, and in fact, it's my second favorite. Right behind the GOAT, Supersonic Racing. I mean, what you expect? The song embodies everything that Sonic R strive to do in music, and it adds in that signature Sonic speed that makes you want to go faster and win that race. Overall, this OST is some of the best in the franchise, 8.5 out of 10 OST, even though it is unfortunately quite small. But the next OST? Oh well, let's say the complete opposite. I mean, guns, am I right? Now, okay, while personally I actually like Shadow the Hedgehog, the game is admittedly not the best, and the OST is often seen as too edgy or just plain bad. Nah, the OST is absolutely fire. This was the last mainline 3D Sonic game Juiced was lead composer for, so this man cooked. This soundtrack is just amazing. A lot of the songs, in fact, focus on a deep, grungy guitars, and a lot of them just slap. Death Ruins, Glyphic Canyon, and My Goat Lethal Highway, for example, use these style. And wow, they are really good songs. But then there will also be songs that don't fit the genre at all, like Gun Fortress, which is such a chill song that is the true dark path. It's like a song that's trying to plead to not take this path, to be a hero. And then it'll return back into that really good grungy rock with Central City and one of my favorite levels in the game, Lava Shelter. And again, it'll turn into something completely different, with Mad Matrix and Digital Circuit having metallic artificial sounds, and one of my favorites, Final Haunt. I'm gonna be honest, not a single stage that I've played through, and yes, I beat the game with all 10 endings, did I not bop my head to at least a little bit. And we haven't even gotten to the vocal tracks yet. I Am All I Mean needs no introduction. Sure, it's pretty edgy, but it is such a great song. Crush 40 absolutely killed with this one. Almost Dead is the most edgy song in this OST. I mean, when you got lyrics like Heaven Can't Save Us, Hell is a Joke, you know this should not be in a Sonic game. But if you get past the laughable lyrics, this song actually kinda slaps, and it honestly fits the true dark ending very well. Chosen One is that one song that you play when you feel depressed. It's such a sad song about Shadow not being able to find himself. I personally think it's probably one of the weaker vocal themes in the game, but it is really, really good nonetheless. Now, All Hail Shadow is a completely different case. While the Crush 40 version clears this one, it's just as amazing. And that guitar solo, oh my god. And finally, we have Never Turn Back. It is my second favorite Sonic ending theme. Yeah, I'm insane, thanks for telling me that. This song is just peak, genuinely such a banger. Jun really did close out his last Sonic game as lead composer with an absolute masterpiece. 9 out of 10 OST, no questions asked. Anyway, time to pass it on to that one Aussie Sonic tuber, SuperSaiyanSonic. Ciao!
G'day Sonic Squad. Now there have been many attempts at a Sonic racing game in the past, such as the previously mentioned Sonic R, but there wasn't a racing game that showed the unique Sonic action element that no other racing game has. So, Sonic Riders was created and revived the Sonic Racing sub-series in a fresh, revamped format. And for the soundtrack, they chose to adopt an electronic sound throughout that complemented the dynamic gameplay and upbeat attitude of the game. Sawada directed the sound and recorded the sound effects, while Tokoi and Kumatani did the music for the game. Most of the game's music involves techno and synthesizers, as such it has an electronic, futuristic type of feel. The vocal themes for Sonic Riders are competent and different, but nevertheless a select taste. The opening theme, Sonic Speed Riders, thanks to Sawada, livens things up a bit with the pumping electronic beats, electronic voice manipulation, and even some rock influences. He gets the chance to really extend and warp the theme into a focused electro mix version. The ending theme, Catch Me If You Can, is definitely more experimental, with Kenichi Tokoi blending pop and hip hop influences throughout to achieve a relatively unique sound, with definitive innovation in Ronald B's vocals and the electronic backing. The majority of the soundtrack is dominated by the aforementioned electronic music. Metal City is a very convincing attempt at psychedelic trance music and works well into the game to represent dynamic and transient racing scenes. There are also some Marvel themes to keep things a little diverse on the soundtrack, with Green Cave being a twist on Sawada's usual format with its ethnic vocals and rumbling congas against harder beats, and Tokoi's Arabian-influenced Sand Ruins having a deep yet melodic tone that you could definitely potentially mistake it for a Street Fighter game. The Babylonian theme is superficially different from what composer Fumi Kumatani usually does, with the track being entirely on acoustic instruments in a whimsical dance-like manner, and it is dominated by a warm flute melody at the end. Sonic Riders has by no means a bad score. All the tracks are suitably integrated into the game and being more dynamic yet atmospheric electronic music that the team succeeded in this regard. I give the original Sonic Riders soundtrack a 7.5 out of 10, and while that is a good score, its sequel soundtrack is much more worthy. The sequel to Sonic Riders, Zero Gravity, was a little different to its predecessor with its overboard racing gameplay, spacey storyline, and intense musical score. While maintaining the electronic focus of the sub-series, it introduced many novel elements too, such as bold fusions with rock and orchestra music for a far more personal and intense score. Let's start with the focal theme, Ungratify, written by Kenichi Tokoi and sung by Cashel. The vocal line is wonderfully constructed and performed, abstract and focused during the verse, but emphatic and charismatic during the chorus. The supporting instrumentals are an elegant blend of rock, electronic and orchestra features, as are many of the subsequent themes on this soundtrack. When the vocals and instrumentals come together, the result is epiphoric, upbeat and nostalgic. There are lots of catchy bass hooks and sweeping melodies to keep listeners entertained, as well as a certain dash of quirkiness. The track works wonderfully during the opening sequence. It is also given an electro remix that is featured in the menus of the game. Finally, Rumblebee's Catch Me If You Can gets a remix that still suits the attitude of the game, and the string punctuations add a little more maturity. Some people may prefer to the original, but nah, this is a banger, especially when it starts blasting when Jet and his team appears in the hero story. The majority of the racing themes are dynamic hybrids of electronic elements. For example, Sawada blends bubbly electronic beats with punchy rhythm guitar riffs on Spiral Madness and tense string motifs on Through Traffic. The rhythmical elements really add to the dynamicy, whereas the tremble elements complement the futuristic scenery. Kumatani offers curious twists on her deep electro-orchestra style with relatively upbeat and quirky additions in Gadget Round, the colourful piano work of Aquatic Time, or the all-encompassing fusions in Dive Into Gravity. They fit their respective stages wonderfully without resorting to cliches either. That said, there is a bit of a more diversity outside the electro tracks. Tokoi's Sealed Ground is one of the most worldly tracks here, featuring efficated bamboo flute leads, transient Abrium excursions, and even some supporting didgeridoo work. Although a lot of the score sounds quite out there was quite a human emotional core to it nevertheless. Tokoi's impressionistic string composition, The Divine Wings, especially reflects this. It opens in an almost elegiac fashion and gradually transitions into more dazzling and haunting passages, maintaining an emotional grip from start to finish. Hideki Kobayashi's The Lightless Black is a fantastical orchestra composition with science fiction vibes and a shocking finish. A lot of the short event cues are very dramatic too. Again, these tracks blend orchestra, electronic and percussive elements, but the combinations are much more audacious than before and the intensity never really relents. Overall, Zero Gravity's soundtrack is a vast improvement as a sequel. For one, there are stronger melodies and rhythmical hooks this time, and there is clearly more creative input with the fusion of rock, orchestra and vocal elements to already competent electronic mixes. This also contributes to a much more diverse score. But perhaps what really sells the soundtrack is its emotional nature, whether the edgy event themes, euphoric racing themes, or more personal moments. This score really inspires a range of emotions, and for that, I give Zero Gravity an 8.5 out of 10. Now that they have made this beautiful OST, how could they possibly top themselves? Well, let's find out I guess in the third and last installment of the Sonic Riders series. Okay, so maybe you all forgot about Sonic Free Riders, the Microsoft Kinect launch toy that lets you race against other characters in the Sonic universe by moving your body in your own living room. And honestly, I don't blame you. Everything about this game is bad, unfortunately, which is a shame because the idea and concept was great and the technology was there, but it just didn't work properly with the camera not registering your movements, and yet the iToy worked completely fine in Sega Superstars a decade early. Sorry, went a bit off topic up there. But that doesn't mean we haven't taken notice of the music. With a catchy theme song and some upbeat electronic music, Even if the Kinect wasn't your thing, there's no reason this music can't be. Free, being an electronic rock fusion track composed by Jun Sonoe and performed by Chris Madden, makes not only a well-polished track, but honestly a catchy and cool song. I think the team knew they were onto something, as an alternative version performed by Crush 40 exists, taking on more of an alternative metal edge without the electronic elements and filters on the vocals. Take a listen and hear the comparison. From here on out, composers Tomonori Sawada and Koichi Sakurai offers up a fun and varied collection of tracks. Starting with Sawada's compositions, the smooth electronics of Start Up Your EX gear as you learn about your futuristic equipment, even though the Kinect controls are dog shit, to the ascending progression and laid back vibes of Dolphin Result suit their place in the game perfectly. Both themes of Frozen Forest and Forgotten 2 have sleek, well-produced backings, but the simple synth melodies lend the tracks a whimsical, almost kid-like charm. Koichi Sakurai, on the other hand, takes us in a far different directions. Rocky Ridge is a fun track with filtered banjos and harmonicas along with some snazzy vocal elements. Metropolis Speedway goes in a similar direction, bringing in some distinctly western sounds with a poppy rock sound and lyrics. It's probably one of my favourite tracks from the game, to be honest. And then there's Magma Rift, having a searing electronic track that turns into a fiery club experience about halfway through. So, overall, despite the gameplay of Free Riders being a letdown to say the least, the soundtrack is pretty decent, a solid 7 out of 10 for me. Kind of a sad way to end the Riders series, but let's cover another series of games that didn't end so poorly with Sonic Rush.
Sonic Rush!
So before I head the video back to Skully, I want to talk about Sonic Rush. This is a little bit of a personal indulgence because I love Sonic Rush's soundtrack a ton, but it's also one of the most unique soundtracks in the series because it stands out on its own, all thanks to one man, Hideki Nakamura. If that composer's name means anything to you, you know what we're getting into. And if it doesn't, well, you're in for a treat. The stuff he makes is totally unlike what any Sonic game up to this point has sounded like, sampling clips in every song with a very hard edge and techno feel to it all. Nakamura's work is absolutely bursting with energy, most famously in Jet Set Radio, and that tradition carries over here. The reason I mentioned the composer first is that he really fits this game, hand in glove. Sonic Rush was the first Sonic game to use the now much iterated upon boost system, lending the game a lot of raw speed and accelerating momentum. While that's good and dandy, it means the previous strengths of Sonic OSTs, the pacing, the variety, ups and downs, none of that really works so well. You don't want the music slowing down when you never really slow down the game, you know? Bringing in another composer who makes works that exemplify this was a smart move. Sonic Rush's music, more than anything else, relies on repetition to make a groove. A good clear showing of this is the song Right There, Right On. You'll hear voices chanting right there, right on throughout the song, but not just a phrase, but clips too. Sometimes it'll break down into the right, 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 right. Just listen and you'll see what I mean.
Right there, right there, right there, right there, right there, right there, right there.
These vocal clips are what I would consider the backbone of the musical pieces, giving it rhythm, tone, and really rounding out the energetic feeling into something decidedly more techno in style. One other really notable example of this is also the song Back to Back, which in instruments is mostly drum beats or quick notes, the only real instrumental being trumpets. Much of the song rides on the heavily distorted and snappy vocal tunes and shouting, creating this very odd flow that ends up being great fun as you listen to it right now. That's about all I have to say for the soundtrack at the base. It's simple, but it has its own super distinct style that really stands out. However, there's one more thing I want to point out, and that's that every stage song has a remix for when you're playing as Blaze, not just Sonic. Where other Sonic games would offer different versions and tones going from act to act, Sonic Rush keeps it all very much the same, but mixes it all differently. The result is a very fleshed out soundtrack. It feels like they really squeezed out interesting beats and tones out of very sample and track to the max, and the goal was keeping it interesting and consistent. That's what Sonic Rush is all about at the end of the day: samples, music, and one goal: energy. It doesn't want to deviate from those goals, but it doesn't need to, mixing it up just right so it never feels boring. It's one of the most single-minded soundtracks I ever heard, but you know what? It wears that hat well. Sonic Rush's soundtrack is a 9 out of 10. Now, I know I said this, but before I hand it back to Skully, there's one more game I've got to cover: Sonic Rush Adventure. Musically, Sonic Rush Adventure contains the same kind of upbeat tunes that got so much praise from its predecessor. The game has Toyama Otani as the main composer, and while the rest of the team of composers sought to preserve the style of music that Rush presented while adapting to the game's theme of adventure, whilst also featuring elements of tropical and hip-hop music. With that, despite it not being made by Nakamura, I found the music to be incredibly catchy. It's clear that Otani and the crew had made the game its own, with irresistible hooks in Machine Labyrinth and a blasting tune in Blizzard Peaks. It's not exactly the best Sonic soundtrack, but certainly a good one that makes effective use of the DS's sound capabilities. It gets a 7 out of 10 for me. From one Aussie bogan to another, I send the discussion back to Skully since it is his video. Take it away, mate.
Thanks, mate. Geez, for my own video, I've had a lot of guest stars. I'll save the shoutouts for the end though, since we have more music to talk about. Starting things back up with Sonic All-Stars Racing. Okay, this one is a little mixed for me, but I like it overall. Like Generations, it has a lot of older songs, but not many proper original ones. I like So Much More, but also kinda hate it. Overall 6.5 out of 10 because it lacks originality. Anyway, let's move on to the next game in this series, Sonic All-Stars Racing Transform. What do you mean it doesn't have a main theme? Okay, so I'm not gonna lie to you, I actually really don't like the soundtrack. It's really motherfucking mid. Like, super mid. Fuck this soundtrack. Actually, it's like a 3 out of 10. Every song starts the same and they sound really bland and just fucking samey. Mid as fuck, 3 out of 10. God, alright, let's hope Team Sonic Racing can carry this. Let's get on to that. Hell yeah, that is what I'm talking about. A proper intro for a proper game. Let's get into it. Overall, a lot of themes are really good, and I like this reference to Supersonic Racing here. That was clever. And overall, even though the game is just alright, the soundtrack is really good, with tons of tracks and remixes. God damn it, Team Sonic Racing, you get a 9 out of 10, because you were just so good. Pat on the back, approval. Okay, we're almost over. I swear, we don't have far to go. Now let's hope the next one is a good one. And oh, thank God. Sonic Runners is one of my favorite OSTs of all time, and honestly it deserves so much more recognition than it gets because it's well, kind of not really available anymore and it doesn't have too many songs, but God, the songs it does have are amazing. I think it still deserves the 10 out of 10 treatment for how good each and every song is. It's all crafted with such care and it's just wonderful for me. Go Quickly is one of my favorite tracks because it added such fun and fast energy to the song, so 10 out of 10. It might seem biased, but whatever. This is my video, you freaking nerd. I get to decide. Alright though, now I asked my Twitter for some suggestions, and my God, some of you have officially pissed me the fuck off. Not only did you pick the worst OSTs, but you actually made me listen to these. Let's just get started before I fucking burst a blood vessel with Sonic Spinball, for fuck's sakes. Alrighty, so I played the best track in the intro segment, but you don't even want to hear the next track. So I'm legitimately, and I'm dead serious, putting a headphone warning on the screen now. Please turn down your volume. So here is a timestamp on screen to skip past it, because seriously, this hurt my ears so bad. Like, I will give you some time to do this thing. Like, oh, let me just like, didn't do it. If you didn't do it, you're a psychopath, because fuck, this hurt my ears. But sure, here, if you die, don't blame it on me. Here's the option track for Sonic Spinball. Alrighty, so if you're still here, that either means you just heard that monstrosity or you skipped ahead. But yeah, just imagine high-pitched robotic metal gross shit by like a minute and a half. And that's the option theme. So yeah, this OST gets a 1 out of 10. If I could give it a 0, I would, but there is one good track, and it's the first one. Alrighty, we got one more game left, and fuck, this is the worst one. Honestly, I have nothing else to say besides this game altogether, OST included, sucks. The shit is ass. It's 0 out of 10. There's nothing that redeems this game. That being dead serious, nothing. Anyway. Alrighty. We made it to the end of this giant video. Oh my god, man. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, don't worry, I got something you'll definitely want to hear, but before that, huge shout out, and I mean huge shout out, to Val, MrNeedleMouse, and SuperSaiyanSonic for being guests in this video. They're some insanely talented Sonic creators, and honestly, I'm lucky to have them in this video. First links in the description are their channels, so go show them some love, go watch their videos 10 million times, and tell them Skullyy sent you, because goddamn, this video is amazing. And it's all thanks to them. I seriously could not be making videos without all the support from my team, my collaborators, and of course, every single person watching this video. You're all helping in some small way, and I appreciate it. But yeah, since you made it all the way to the end of this video, I have a surprise for you. I am creating a Sonic YouTuber podcast that will be directly uploaded to this channel and will contain heaps of content with many Sonic tubers you know and love. We will discuss topics like recent video games coming out, YouTube advice, and life stories, and pretty much whatever we want to cover. This will be a more laid-back experience to listen to while you commute to work, or on a plane, or while you speed around Sonic 06 and realize that you should touch some grass and take your filthy hands off the Xbox 360 controller and contemplate life. But yeah, whenever this video goes live, there should be the first episode uploaded and ready to many guests. So subscribe to stay up to date with that, and new uploads coming out. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you liked this video, like it because it makes me happy seeing big numbers. Subscribe to help me out and give many other talented creators a spotlight here on this channel. And on our podcast, let me know some other Sonic OSTs that aren't talked about as much, and I can make a third video in this series of lesser known Sonic OSTs instead of all the popular ones. Because seriously, if this series keeps popping off, I will keep making more videos, trust me. Anyway, I hope you all have a great day. I'll see you on the next video, or in the podcast thingy, which will be displayed in the end card shortly. Anyway, see ya frickin' nerds.